Hello and welcome to the course. My name is Chris Fludstrom and I have been a lifelong martial artist. I'm a 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo and I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've been teaching self-defense courses for about 15 years. I'm extremely passionate about the topic of personal protection because I believe it's one of the most useful ways that you can use martial arts. I teach several courses throughout the year at my academy in Illinois. I've also taught at several different high schools, including Stevenson High School, for multiple years, which is one of the biggest high schools in the Chicagoland area. I've taught self-defense workshops at multiple colleges, and earlier in my career, whenever I'm teaching a self-defense course, I always believe that I'm trying to do the right thing, that I'm trying to teach appropriate material and make sure that my students can use what they learn in a way that's effective. And to further my education, I actually went to a personal protection workshop that was run by Tom Sippen, and he's the creator of the Hardened Target personal protection system. He's based out of West Allis, Wisconsin. And during the class, he asked me, "So, you teach personal protection classes?" And I said, yeah, I do self-defense stuff. And he says, "Oh, okay. What do the statutes in Illinois say about self-defense?" And I didn't have an answer for him because I didn't know what a statute was. And that was a pretty big wake-up call for me. Like I know martial arts, I know the techniques, but the truth is I was teaching something where I only understood part of the picture. After I started learning about the law of self-defense, naturally I started to inquire with other self-defense instructors or other martial arts instructors. I would talk to school owners and instructors and other masters and just see what they thought about the law of self-defense. And a vast majority were like me, where we had never received any formal education when it comes to self-defense law. We had been given our standard quips of if this, then you can do this, and we took it at face value, but we never really questioned whether or not what we were learning and teaching was based in actual statutory law. And we were teaching with no context, no legal framework, just the assumption that if maybe it worked in the gym, then it would work in the street, and because we call it self-defense, it would be legally justified. But as soon as I learned that that's not the case, I became fanatical and tried to educate myself as much as I possibly could on the overall idea of self-defense law. I made it my mission because if I'm going to teach something to somebody, I want to make sure that I'm teaching it to the absolute best of my ability. So I would talk to police officers who've actually responded to the scene of a crime where self-defense was part of the situation. And most importantly, I talked to lawyers who have tried cases of self-defense in court. I needed to do the best I could to understand the full picture. I believe it's my responsibility as an instructor to make sure that everything I'm teaching is as legitimate as it possibly can be without having to actually be a lawyer myself. Now, I can't afford to have a lawyer with me in every single one of my classes to make sure that what I'm teaching is sound, but I've done a lot of early research to try to make sure that everything that I plan to say has been run by some form of professional that could recognize that I'm just talking nonsense, or if I have an idea of what I'm trying to say. And for this reason, this is why I refuse to run a self-defense workshop or a personal protection workshop unless I have at least 1 hour to go over legal considerations of self-defense. I personally believe that anything less than that is irresponsible. I mean, the truth is, martial artists want to help. We teach self-defense with the absolute best of intentions. We want to give people confidence, and we want to be able to make people feel like they can keep themselves safe. But if we don't understand the legal side of self-defense, we're already missing half of that equation. And we risk doing real harm, and not just to ourselves and our liability, but specifically to our students. Now, knowledge of self-defense law isn't just for self-defense instructors. This is for civilians as well. And you're here because you care about being prepared. Maybe you train in martial arts, maybe you carry a weapon, maybe you are an instructor, or maybe you've looked around at the world and said, you know what, if something happened, would I know what to do? And that's a smart question. The truth is, knowing how to defend yourself is only half of the equation. And the other half is knowing how the law could see what you do. And that's what this course is all about. This course is for regular people. This is for civilians, parents, martial artists, instructors, anyone who wants to get a basic foundation on how self-defense law can work. This is not a law school course. You don't need a textbook. You don't need a legal background. I'm not going to turn you into an attorney. I am not an attorney. And to actually use self-defense, you don't need to be one. But you do need a basic understanding of the rules of the game that you're playing, especially when the stakes are as high as this. You're going to be learning the key principles, the vocabulary, the mental frameworks that are going to help put the odds in your favor that your actions could be viewed as more justifiable in the eyes of the law. Now, we have to put our adult hats on for a second. I am not a lawyer. I am not your lawyer. None of this is legal advice. One of the things that we're going to see in this court is that information is a big part on how things can play out. And I don't have enough information about your situations to even know where to begin. Every state, every country, every case is different. So everything in this course is about educational entertainment. This is not legal advice. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you've had to use force against another person, your first call after the police should be to a qualified attorney. With that being said, why are you here? And I think a lot of this is like learning CPR. You don't have to be a doctor to be able to perform CPR and save a life. However, a little bit of training can go a long way, especially in the face of an emergency. The same is true here. You don't have to be a lawyer to be able to defend yourself. But I believe that you do need to know what the law says in regards to self-defense. And unfortunately, it's often not very clear. You need to know how your actions could be judged and how to avoid doing things that could hurt your case, even if you believe that you were in the right. Here's one of the biggest things that I want you to take away from this course. Based on conversations that I've had with lawyers in the actual courtroom, a lot of what tends to happen in these cases comes down to storytelling. The actual facts of the case are very, very important, but typically these points of information are used to create a story on why each party did what they did, why one person's guilty, why one person's innocent, and they're taking all of the information and creating a narrative around that. And so a lot of what we're trying to learn is that if you ever have to act in self-defense, your goal is to get as much of that information to demonstrate that you're the good guy of the story. You want to be the reasonable person. You want to be the person that did not want a fight, but you're the person that did what they had to do in order to protect themselves or someone else. And a lot of that isn't just about the fight. That starts long before the fight. So in this course, we're going to cover a lot of different things. What some of the self-defense law says and what it doesn't. How to understand certain terms, which are part of what constitutes self-defense, like imminent threat. How we can understand certain vague terms like reasonable. What your intent can say about your actions and what actually happens. How laws are different depending on where you are. And how to tell a story with your actions in a way that helps you, not hurts you. By the end of this course, I have a few goals. I want you to understand at what point force can begin to be legally justified. I want you to avoid common myths that people often talk about in regards to self-defense. I want you to be able to understand how important it is to be able to explain what happened. I want you to see the importance of being able to explain what happened following particular guidelines. I want you in training to train and prepare with clarity in mind. And most importantly, I want to give you the tools to stack the odds in your favor. Now, none of this stuff is going to be things that are done by you, but in knowing what to look for and in knowing how to proceed with certain things, you could be giving your attorney a lot of information that can work with you. It is not your job to tell the story, it is your job to collect the information. And by doing as many things as you possibly can the right way, that makes sure that you are following what the law is saying when it comes to self-defense. Because unfortunately, there are no guarantees when it comes to self-defense. But smart decisions, clear thinking, good preparation, those are always the best tools for your protection. Let's get into it.